Okay, well, welcome to another episode of Real Talk. And with me today are an awesome twin team of realtors here in Portland. I've known these guys for about 10 years. And just in the last month, had a great conversation and learned a lot more about their background. So I want to welcome Jennifer Raynak and Katie Fracasso of the twin team at Living Room Realtors. Jenny and Katie, say hi.
Hey, thanks
Well,
for having us.
thank you for coming in. And my passion in this show is to bring out the stories and the background of people to better understand how that influences how they built their businesses and how they engage their clients. And when I heard more of the story from Jennifer last month, I was just like, okay, yeah, this all makes sense. And so I wanted to have you on, have you guys share your story, learn a bit more about you. And so thank you for coming on and being willing to do this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So you guys have over 50 years of combined real estate experience. We're going to get to your early career and how you've built your team and your business. But before that, I want to go back before and learn about the early days. You guys are twin sisters and had your formative years here in Portland. So tell us about your upbringing, how you got to Portland, and where you grew up.
Go for it. Well, we were born in Palo Alto, only because my dad was attending Stanford to get his MBA. And we lived there until we were three when he completed his schooling. And then my mom is from Portland area. So when we left Palo Alto via Sequim, Washington, we landed back in Portland to be closer to family because unfortunately my parents split up. So my dad followed suit, but after my mom left him. So and then we grew up in Northeast Portland off 51st and Alameda. Our grandmother actually bought the house for my mom because she couldn't afford it at home, and that's where we were raised.
So you guys were raised by a single mom, and as I understand it, there was four of you. You've got two older brothers.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Busy household, single mom. Tell us a bit more about that. What was it like growing up in Northeast Portland, family of four? Your mom had a profound influence on you guys, and I want you to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, my mom intentionally got a job at the YMCA down in the Hollywood district so that she would know exactly where we all were after school until she got off work. And so we could, burn off some energy. So she took a job that didn't make a whole lot of money just to be able to do that because there weren't a lot of childcare options and she didn't have the resources to do that, except for my grandma who was nearby and my aunt wasn't far away, but they were busy too. So, and she just was a really super hard worker. I mean, she taught us to have a really strong work ethic, put your name to what you do your very best. And I think watching her both struggle, but then also like stay so dedicated was a lot of where all four of us have gotten that kind of a work ethic and drive.
Awesome. And Jennifer, when we had the conversation last week, you talked about how your childhood and your upbringing really brought you two together. And I would imagine, it's not common for twin siblings to be able to work so well together. What was it about how you guys grew up, that really brought you guys close together and allowed you guys to have such a great working relationship later in life?
Well, the only thing I can say is I don't think people really quite appreciate what a non-amicable divorce was like in the 70s. There weren't the resources, there wasn't mediation, there wasn't a lot of things now that are so much more humane. So my parents went through the court system. We had to testify in court when we were 6 or 7. There was a lot of chaos and a lot of intensity around their divorce and the anger that followed. And it affected all four of us kids. So while my mom did the very best to have a great upbringing, I think all of that impacted Katie and I to where we were early on aware of like, we have each other. And of course, we love our mom. And of course, we even love our brothers, but we're all kids trying to figure this out.
Mhm.
So it was pretty chaotic. So I think we early on learned to rely on one another, just kind of, coping and
Survive.
getting by. Yeah. I mean, those weren't the fun days of being a kid of divorce. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've witnessed you guys build your team and build your business, and I've obviously witnessed firsthand how you guys serve your clients. And you guys have really a beautiful relationship. I mean, you guys do work so well hand in hand, and I think that's really unique and something special. So, although it sounds like there are a lot of challenges and maybe stress and anxiety, the gifts of that are being born out of that, which
Yeah.
is awesome. One of the other things that I think we talked about in our previous conversation that I love so much is that because of the challenges that you faced early on, you guys really have an empathetic approach to people in general. But again, as we begin to define, some of your values and how you guys serve your clients, I think that's one of the things that I want to highlight is that, you guys really do look at people and their situations with a very patient and understanding approach that I think people appreciate, which is awesome. So what about grandma? Because I know she played a formative role in your upbringing as well. Tell us about your grandma.
Yeah, she was a force. She was widowed fairly young in her 50s and never remarried. And just a strong backbone, but a soft place to land. And we would oftentimes in grade school, before my mom worked at the Y, we'd go to her house right after school. Um, and we also just happen to have a lineage of strong women. We think it's great grandmother was Esther Short of the infamous now Esther Short Park. And she really was, her and her husband staked all the land of Southwest Washington and Vancouver, which is why the park is named after her. And she lost her husband too. And it's documented that she had many run-ins with generals, slapped one, escaped one by canoe. They were always trying to take her land. And so, yeah, so we have a strong background of strong women and
In real estate.
real estate. Yeah.
Yeah. And our grandmother, the same grandmother, was married to a builder, and he owned the land that Madison High School had been on.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and that was a big piece of land that he owned, but he would usually go and build a home or two, buy a couple lots, build a couple. So all around the Madison High or now McDaniel High School area, we have a whole list of, I think there's like 47 homes that he built and sold. So my grandmother she was involved in real estate because she helped him a lot. So yeah, real estate and strong women are in our background.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, and now, I mean, you guys have a very functioning senior program that I feel like maybe might be partially inspired by your grandma as well. And so as we begin to think again about like your upbringing and how you were raised, we've got hard work, which was a direct witness to your mom. We've got feelings of empathy and patience for others who might be going through hard things. And your senior program. The other thing I want to highlight here is that you guys are highly involved in bringing your sphere together, your community together to serve various community aspects. I mean, I'm aware of the blood drive, your coat and food drive. What are some of the events you guys do with the community, and why is that so important to who you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have been so fortunate to have so many clients support us and stay in touch with us long after they ever buy or sell a home. And when you have that many people and they are wonderful people, it made sense to us to how else could we give back to the community? And that just made sense to have a non-for-profit, let our clients take advantage of that by, every year we have people come in for the coat drive and the food drive and the blood drive. I think we've done the coat drive, I think we've done for 10 years, the blood drive, I think easily 5. And our clients really love the opportunity to give back in a way that is connected to them. They know us, they like coming to our events. We try to make it fun. We also try to support a local business because half the time we have these at breweries or local businesses. And so we're trying to support them too by hosting it there. We've had a mammogram event. I mean, we've done so many things over the years just in trying to think what ways can we give back, supporting one tail at a time, a dog rescue. So yeah, it's just us being able to like provide a platform. And really, that's all we're doing. Our clients are doing all the amazing work of donating.
Yeah.
Well, it's humble for you to say that, and you guys have been kind enough to invite me, and I've come to a couple of them, and they are super fun. It seems like you guys always dial up good weather, by the way. I'm not sure how you do that.
Yeah.
But
I'm not always.
but in preparation for this call, I went online and read some of your reviews of some of your past clients have said things about working with you guys and the team. And I think one of the themes that comes out is that time and time again they mentioned that we went through a house transaction, but at no time did it ever feel like a transaction. We felt like we were kind of brought into this community of friends. And there seems to be kind of community there of shared value, right? Of
Yeah.
treating people well, obviously, but also offering that opportunity to come together to serve the community. And I know that so many people out there want to be more involved in giving back, and by providing them with that opportunity, I know it's appreciated. So that's awesome.
That. Yeah.
Thank you, Evan.
On that note, Evan, I just also wanted to say, I mean, a large part of that is just that Katie and I, from like probably day one, looked at the ways that you can build a real estate practice. And there's lots of ways you can do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is through a cold relationship or lead generation. And for Katie and I think, again, because of how we were raised, we just knew that if we did our best for each and every client, they would come back to us and it would help them and it would help us. So that's really how we built our business over these so many years. And it's a philosophy that aligns with us, yes.
Right.
So the people I think we attract feel comfortable coming to us because they've been referred by somebody they know and trust. And that's exactly the business we wanted to build.
That's
also,
awesome.
I just think, Evan, even when I got into real estate in 96, Jen came over after a decade of being at Nike in 1998. We never looked at our real estate practice as sales. We always looked at it as service, customer service, public service, whatever you want to call it, which is, I think, why in part a lot of our clients don't feel like it's transactional or that, we're trying to make a certain quota. We're obviously trying to keep our doors open, but beyond that, we really care the most about putting our clients' interest first and not making it a sale.
Yeah, awesome. And so let's transition there because I want to get into your early professional experience. And as I understand it, Katie, you were the one that got into a real estate related career first. That was, I think, 1996. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Ironically, despite my dad being a contractor, my brothers became both builders and contractors. Our grandfather was a developer. Real estate really didn't hit my radar until I was managing a private athletic club after I graduated college. And I started losing my salespeople to real estate. And I thought, okay, what is this about real estate? And the company, the athletic club, got bought. And so I thought, okay, if there's ever a change, I'm going to jump into real estate. I really didn't know much about it, but just jumped in with both feet and just learned as I went. Those were the days where there weren't assistants. That would have been a smart way to start, but I just jumped in and got my license in 3 weeks. And after a couple of years, I just recruited Jen because I thought it was really fun and fun to do our own thing.
Yeah. And a piece of that Katie doesn't share is along the way in that same time period, she realized that property management was also kind of one of those stepping stones and realized that was a good avenue. So you managed properties with your husband for, I don't know,
a handful of years. Yeah.
Well, and that all, I think, that was probably informative from the standpoint that you began to see the property owners generating income and generating wealth off the ownership of that real estate. And it doesn't necessarily sound like you had an influence growing up that would have taught you that. So I can imagine that was extremely important for you as well in terms of understanding the value of real estate.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure that influenced in part us buying rentals and having a real estate portfolio over the years as well. So yeah, I'm sure that influenced part of it too.
Okay, there was another early hire in your career. At some point, you hired your mom, I understand.
Yeah. So I started out in 1996 at a company called Stan Wiley that has long since been gone.
I remember Stan Wiley. Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And they had, the reason I went there is because of their training. And they said, you need to cold call 2 hours every day. So I bought this behemoth computer at the time And I would get on the phone 2 hours every day. And I needed help with the administrative piece. My mom had just retired from United Airlines. So yes, brought her on, and it was she and I'd get appointments and she'd prep all my paperwork, and that we did that for a couple of years. And then that's when I said, oh gosh, I can't serve all the leads I've gotten. I need help. So that's when Jen came over from Nike. And then it was the three of us for a number of years.
And worked well?
It worked very well. In fact, my mom got to the point where she wasn't
Really
she
working.
wasn't really effective for the demand that we had, but she
Yeah.
would come in every day, get a cup of coffee, sit down, and think she was doing something very important.
Yeah.
Even though we had since hired yet another assistant.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, it was great. It was a great excuse for us to get to spend time together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would imagine that part of the reason you had that early success was, again, that focus of serving, right? How can I serve?
Right.
How can I provide value, as opposed to just making a sale or making a transaction?
Yes.
For sure.
Through that, you end up, you end up building trust, and trust takes time. And
Yes, it
maybe not the
does.
quickest way to build a business, but it's the most
Right.
important,
Correct.
without question.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So, okay, Stan Wiley, and then the next stop in your career was over to Hassan, as I recall, correct?
Well, Prudential bought out Stan Wiley, so I was
Okay.
there for 5 minutes. Couldn't have been more different than Stan Wiley. So yeah, in 2000 we went over to the Hassan Company, where we stayed for 13 years.
And Mike Hassan, who founded Hassan Real Estate, is obviously no longer with us, but has had a tremendous impact on many real estate professionals across our region, and many highly productive, quality real estate professionals. Share a little bit about what you learned while working at the Hassan Company.
Well, that whole environment was so attractive to us because Mike's business model at that time was, and for most of his brokerage, was, you had to have the sign of experience. That was his tagline. So you had experience. He would only really bring on experienced agents
who did a certain volume.
So for Katie and I to be only in our careers for a handful of years, we were, we got to work alongside some agents that really knew exactly what they were doing. And Mike had direct guidance in every single meeting that we have in the office. So it was a really intimate experience, and yet really valuable because of the other agents we got exposed to and could learn from.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike interviewed
ahead,
us. I mean, when you're a newer agent, you realize any brokerage will take you, but Mike was very selective, and we had to interview to be considered. And that was just so different to how other brokerages were.
Yeah. And interviewing other agents previously at that experience, the other thing that I heard with him is that he also shared a very strong desire to serve, like, as an advisor, as a consultant to your clients.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like maybe raise the bar of professionalism, previous to, and even like, say, Barbara Sue Seal, realtors were maybe on par with like used car salesmen, and because through those two companies here in Portland really brought a level of elegance or professionalism to the industry, which I think today you can clearly see that in terms of the people that are in the business.
At the time in the day, I think the general public viewed Hassan Company as the Nordstrom of real estate. There was a level of expectation and standards that aligned with our own personal standards of customer care.
And he was sweet on us as well, only because, in part because of our mom working with us, and we grew up in Northeast, and he grew up in Laurelhurst, and his mom and his family were always involved in his business. So I think he, he got why it was so meaningful to have family involved.
That's awesome. From there, you guys transitioned over to Keller Williams in 2013. What was that experience like? Well, what did you draw from that, I guess? How did that influence the team you guys are today?
Well, it's funny. I don't always think of us as being very strategic, but at that point in time, Keller was new in the marketplace and teams did not really exist. And we kept going once Keller came into the marketplace, we would go to their classes and we'd be like, this is just amazing, like personal development, business development. And we'd say, well, we'll just go to that class and come back and we'll implement it over here at Hassan. And of course we tried to do that, but it got to the point where like, why aren't we just going there and immersing ourselves fully? Because at that point, the market was rebounding after 2008. Our business was blossoming. We just could not handle all the business, Katie and I alone, and still have any time to sleep. So we purposely went there to learn how to build out a team, and their model is very conducive to that. And we were in one of the strongest office in the city for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really paid off. I mean, we got exactly what we hoped for, got to work alongside some amazing agents and learn a lot.
Yeah, I would say we probably learned more about business at Keller, especially under the leadership of Chris Suarez. And we probably learned more about real estate at Hassan. But they couldn't have been two more fundamentally different brokerages, being locally owned versus international. But literally, we did everything that they taught us to how to grow a team, and we did. And we for 10 years before we left, we had a very functioning, very efficient, very productive team.
And I was in that office at that time. I would attend team meetings, and it was a very vibrant office. You guys played a big role in that. And I think, anyone watching this might immediately think that, building out a business strategy or building out a team can be somewhat self-serving, but quite the opposite, right? I mean, the reason you build a team is because you want to have specialists in these particular roles that have expertise and a high level of competence to better serve the client. And have more opportunity to focus on what you're good at. And you guys have done that. I just think about, how you guys have more or less divided your business, where Katie, you tend to help mostly sellers, and Jennifer, you mostly buyers.
Yeah.
It's really about creating, proficiency, and that allows you to become experts in that space. It's important.
It's interesting, Evan, because you're not only, so we're changing as brokers, the markets change, and then, and your needs change, right? Our needs in 2013 were very different than they were in 2000. And it's funny because a lot of brokers act embarrassed when they change brokerages semi-frequently. But if you imagine, nothing stays the same. So of course your needs change.
Yeah.
So for us, and granted, we made some mistakes early on trying to build our team. Some of the models that worked early on didn't work 5 years later because the market was so different. So it's a constantly changing landscape, and that's what makes it where you have to be adept at pivoting and restructuring as needed.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
To get back to the serving piece, I think too, if you're going to have an effective team that is able to align with your clients and serve them, because they really, they come wanting us, but if they get a teammate, you have to have invested the time in them. And Katie and I both really enjoyed training agents that were newer on how to serve, good customer service skills, but also good technical skills in the marketplace. So both of us really proud of that, because some agents have now gone on out in the real estate world and feel like they're very well trained because of that. But also they served us at a time where it was needed. And that coaching piece, I really enjoy. I really do. I think it's fun to watch somebody develop, and that's serving as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your business. You guys have a really valuable and awesome resource in your senior real estate services. Talk a little bit about, because that is something that's unique to your team. I don't know a lot of other real estate professionals that have this. Talk a little bit about what that is and how you serve your clients in that capacity.
I'll let you take it. Yeah, I'll let you take it.
Okay. Yeah, in part because of our grandma, in part because of the aging population, we've always had a sweet spot for seniors. And we noticed they were getting passed up more and more by realtors that were moving quicker with DocuSign and just didn't have the patience. So we decided, we flew out to Baltimore. We interviewed we watched a team that had grown a senior division, and came back here and looked for the right person to hire full time to run that program. And we hired a superstar who's still with us 8-9 years later. And basically, we're the only real estate team west of the Mississippi that has a full-time dedicated, what we call a transition specialist, someone who can help the seniors with the overwhelm of how to downsize in the biggest way they've ever done before, often by themselves, widowed, and with sometimes little to no family help. So we focus on the real estate piece, and then our transition specialist does the hand-holding, the interviewing, she's sort of like a free move manager, basically. And at the end of it, our seniors always say, oh, thanks for getting me 25,000 over list, but I couldn't have done it without our senior specialist. And that warms our heart because that's the whole reason we created the program. And now we're very fortunate that many senior retirement communities know about us, have worked with us, and they send us a lot of referrals, and we're tickled to help them.
It's a great space to have specialty in because we know the population is living longer. And a lot of surveys have shown that, at least for now, a lot of the aging population want to try and remain in their homes for as long as possible.
Yeah.
But the reality is, at some point, you can't. And
Right.
at that point, there's usually a lot of questions. People don't know where to turn. They don't know, like, well, should I go be looking at, communities, assisted living?
Right.
What's that going to cost? Do we bring in
Yeah.
care?
Yeah.
And having a resource to be able to assist families, not only the people living there, but when there
Oh,
are
yeah.
children involved, especially if they're remote, is such a tremendous service. And I think, what you're doing is providing a lot of value for those that otherwise would feel kind of lost in the shuffle. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing that started this is I went on, I'll remember one particular listing appointment. I helped a client who was in Council Crest, and she was being groomed by another realtor for the realtor to buy her house basically out from under her. And we started seeing a lot of predatory behavior, unfortunately, within our industry. And that too made us feel even more emboldened to get our program going and help as many seniors as we could.
Yeah, it's a vulnerable population, much like first-time home buyers
Yes.
that are lost. On the other end of the spectrum, there's these aging population. So there's questions of mental capacity, emotional support, resources and connections to other senior professionals that you need. And our program really does a lot of that because we're kind of that one stop where we know and have aligned ourselves with a lot of other senior professionals so we can make those recommendations and provide resources.
Including sometimes our advice to that senior is you can age in place. Like their roof is leaking, but their home is paid for and they think they got to sell because of that. And so there's a lot of resources and times that we'll tell them you should age in place. You don't need to move to a retirement community, and there is
Right
no
now.
sale in it for us right now.
Yeah.
And we're thrilled when that happens too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing that. I want to shift a little bit and talk about your guys' value of empathy. And we talked about it a little bit earlier in the conversation. But, from my perspective, there have been times in my career where I've been, working with a buyer and that buyer has a real estate professional that they're touring homes with. And I might get a call, a couple weeks or months into that engagement. And the buyer says, hey, just so you know, I'm switching realtors and I just, the previous engagement wasn't working out. And I'll always ask, I'll say, hey, well, just, that's totally cool. We're happy to work with anybody here, but help me understand, like, what drove you to make this decision? And inevitably, 99% of the time, the answer I get is because it just didn't feel like that realtor was listening to me. I would give them feedback on maybe it's the type of home or the budget or whatever the case may be. And they just kept showing me stuff that wasn't jiving with that. And I think, your guys' empathetic nature, which was developed, through your childhood and the understanding of what it's like to be going through a hard situation and therefore having patience with someone who's in the same situation is so valuable. And it's something I think that might be, underappreciated. And I'm just curious, is this a conscious approach, or or can you provide an example? Is there a time in your career where you've had to work with someone who might have been particularly difficult, or come to you after not jiving with another realtor, and because of that empathetic nature, you guys were able to solve their problems?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a specific situation because there have been quite a few over the years. I mean,
Sure.
you're right.
Put
When
you on the
someone comes
spot.
to us, it's okay. But if someone comes to us and said they've worked with somebody and it's not a fit, my first question is, I want to dig deeper. And that's a lot of what we do, no matter what, in terms of that making people feel listened to. Not everybody can articulate what they need and why they need it. So we do a really deep intake and we ask a lot of questions like, you said you needed a fourth bedroom, but really what's that for? Is that an office? Is that overnight per guest? How often are guests really coming? I mean, we just dig deeper in on all that. And I do the same thing if they come to me and they've used another agent, because I want to understand why wasn't that a fit? Because maybe I'm the same way and I won't be a fit either. And I'd rather know that up front and help you go on your way, because not everybody's styles are a match. But I think no matter what it is, the circumstance, it's really a matter of taking the time up front and asking those layered questions to get at that. Because we're super empathetic, but we're also believe in being like as analytical and strategic as we can be about having a process in place and knowing clients that are a fit, that are our style. I've had clients that really, they just want to see a house every time in 5 minutes at the drop of a hat. And I'm like, I am not your agent. That just is not gonna, it's not the way we work. We work collaboratively. So if you're gonna keep me at arm's length and not share feedback or what you're thinking and the emotions about the homes you're considering, I don't get enough to be able to then go deeper on the search to be able to find you exactly what you want. So if you're not collaborative, a lot of times those are clients too that we say, oh, we're just not a match. And you should go hop on Redfin and every single time when you want a showing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Katie, you work mostly with sellers, and that's not a part of the transaction I'm often involved with. But for anyone out there who's thinking about, hey, should I sell my home, or maybe I want to stay here a bit longer, maybe it's a senior, maybe it's not. But what's the process for a seller to begin to explore their options for selling a home? What's kind of the ideal steps that one should take?
Well, the first thing is let's find out what it's worth. Because if you're not realistic about that, whatever you want to do with that equity, you may not be able to achieve. So before we put a sign in the yard and get you under contract, let's make sure you know your numbers really well. Once the numbers look good, then let's talk about what that process is going to require of you. There's usually a lot of fear around in a shifting market, especially about will I really get my price? And what will it entail of my already busy life? Once we get through that, I think the main key is I always try to get to what's your motivation. If you're an optional seller, especially in a wonky market like we're in, this may not be a good time for you to sell. And I will tell them that. If they're highly motivated, we just drive everything back to that. Like, yeah, I know you just had a showing half an hour ago and I'm kicking you out again. But remember, you wanted to get to Tampa to be with your grandkids. We just constantly go back to motivation so they stay incentivized. But for the most part, we're very fortunate that, our market time is not very long and we get our clients good results. So once we can get them to that point, usually they're very happy, because we get them across the finish line with the proceeds they expected.
Sure, that's awesome. So in other words, a seller who's considering this, is more than welcome to reach out to you and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling my home.
Oh, yeah.
First step is, what do we think it's worth? And there's no obligation beyond that, right? They may look at that and say, you know what, I'm going to stay a while longer. Or you know what, yeah, hey, what would it take for me to get this house to market and get the results we're trying to get?
Absolutely, Evan. It's no different than when we have a buyer and they're like, well, I'm not sure if I want to buy now or later, or if I can. And we always say, well, talk to Evan. Let's get you pre-approved. Then you have a data point in time that you know where you are and what you need to do, clean up your credit or save more money. No different from a seller. Yeah, you're going to need to switch out the floors or whatever. And if that takes you 6 months, at least now you have a data point and you can decide where you're at and when you want to sell, if at all.
Perfect. And then Jennifer, for you, you mainly work with buyers, and especially for first-time home buyers, the idea of buying a home can just feel overwhelming. And as we know, anytime there's a project that's overwhelming, it's good to kind of chunk it down in steps. So for anyone watching this who's, hey, I want to buy a home, but I don't really know what to do, how would you advise them in terms of initial steps just to learn more about the process?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Katie said on the buying side, it's always, let's first talk about what it is you're really wanting. What are you envisioning? And then, call Evan, get pre-approved, because that's your first homework assignment we tell everybody they need to do. And then we outline the process from there. Like, okay, once you get pre-approved, let's get back together. Let's talk some more about what it is you want and dive into that deeper. And then we'll talk about the market. We'll talk about our process, how we navigate in the marketplace to help you. But but it's always
Budget.
getting first pre-approved because there's no fun going to look at homes that you may or may not be able to buy.
Right.
Right, absolutely. And when we say pre-approved, understand it's not just filling out the application and having a credit pulled. It's really more about getting educated on what your numbers are. What do you
Yes.
know? What
Exactly.
are your estimated payments? How much money are you going to
Exactly.
have? All those questions should be answered before you start touring homes in person.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Um, okay, awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. I've got one more question for you,
Yeah.
and I'm very curious because as we head into 2026, Katie, that's going to be 30 years in real estate for you. Jennifer's close behind at 28. You
I
guys are
know.
going to be coming up on 60 years combined experience. And the question I always like to have my guests answer is, if you could go back in time 30 years ago and talk to yourself when you were a brand new real estate professional in the business, knowing what you know now with 30 years of experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
I'd say go work for a company. Don't be a realtor.
No,
No,
no.
no, uh, no. But to that point, the landscape has changed a lot, right? Like benefits are now a very real thing compared to being a realtor 30 years ago. I think the first thing I would say is I would start on a team. You can see what the different roles are. You can see where your skills align, and not all the pressure is on you to generate leads right out of the gate. You may not have to cold call 2 hours every day like I did. So the first thing I would say is get on a team. And then I would just say uh, to myself back then, I would say just be prepared for change. It's just this industry is nothing but change. And as long as you can pivot and be flexible, I think it's a wonderful vocation. It's fun to be your own boss. It's fun to set your own standards. It's fun to cross other people's paths, both clients and team members, and make their lives better. But I think I would say start on a team.
I would just say enjoy the journey to myself because I think you spend so much time working and kind of looking forward, even in the short term,
Hmm.
that you miss really enjoying. Because now looking back at all the relationships with other agents and past
Mm.
clients, like that's the rewarding part and the meaningful part to me. And so I just would enjoy all that much more because if you're a hard worker and you do right by people, it will come. It will
Mhm.
find you one way or another. So just enjoy it along the way because it's a great job. It's a great industry. And there's really great agents in our industry.
Mhm.
So I'm proud to be part of it.
Well, that's awesome advice, and thank you guys so much for sharing it. And I just want to say that you guys have built such an amazing team and business. And I mean, the results speak for themselves. You guys are ranked as one of the, more highly productive real estate teams around town. But what I love about you guys is you don't look at it that way. You look at it from the standpoint as your ability to help serve others and so help solve their problems and make sure that their housing needs are being taken care of. At the same time, staying highly involved in the community and giving back and making sure that you're listening to others. So, thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you for joining me on Real Talk. If anyone gets to hold of you guys, the twin team at Living Room Realty, you can Google that and all your information will come up. Jennifer, Katie, thank you so much for being a part of the show and for being a part of my life.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Evan.
Evan.
Thanks for all you do and for your friendship over the years.